Question 2 on the second semester 2018 exam is from Richmond Tiger Limited. And we've got some ratios, so we're going to do some ratio analysis. And we've got profit margin, gross profit margin and return on ordinary shareholders' equity. So now if I know my ratios properly, these are all profitability. And I can do that by zipping down to the back of the exam paper, which is down here. And there's my formulas there. Return on shareholders' equity falls under my profitability. It's the first profitability one.
Oh, are we getting the formula sheet on the exam?
This is exactly it. This is what you'll get. Solvency, liquidity, and profitability. And the profitability goes over the page to here, so all the way down to capital expenditure. And we can see how we've got our profit margin there, gross profit margin and shareholders' return. I'll pop that up on screen. So those are the three that we're dealing with here. So they're all profitability. So we'll be asked to comment on the profitability of the organisation. It says, what do you conclude about the entity from the comparison of the ratios for the 2 years? Alright, so what you want to look at is, okay, we've got an increase in profit margin, we've got a decrease in my gross profit margin, and we've got an increase in the return to ordinary shareholders. Okay, so let's have a look. Question 2, number 1. I'm going to say that again. There's an increase. Whoops, I'll spell increase right. In profit margin. And a decrease in gross profit margin. Alright, so that'll get you a mark there. Okay, so there must have been, because we've got a decrease in our or increase in our profit margin, there must have been a decrease in operating expenses. And I can tell that because my the gap between here and here is 12.8, and the gap between here and here is actually 19.2. So the only thing that comes between gross profit and profit is operating expenses. So I must have decreased my operating expenses by approximately 7%. Let's say 6.5%. 6.4% actually. Let's get it be accurate. Okay. Now overall, I would look at that against that and say there's been an improvement in profitability, because we've also got an improvement of, what have we got, 5.62% in my return on ordinary shareholders' equity. 5.62% increase in return for shareholders. All indicators suggest improvement in profitability. Alright, so that takes care of one. Now the next one, this bit of the question wasn't done too well. Identify 3 limitations of financial statement analysis. Now there's actually 5, so I'm just going to list all 5 of them. First thing is, number 1 is use of estimates. Now, estimates can be made in our financial statements and it's all legit. We can estimate the allowance for doubtful debts or depreciation rates and things like that. The second is that we're on the cost basis, and when comparing 2 different organisations we might have to indicate that some assets would be older than other assets, so therefore giving different returns. Subtle but different as well. The application of alternative accounting methods. Now that can come about from depreciation rates. Depreciation rates would be the most obvious one, and calculations of provisions and stuff like that. Also, there's the diversification of entities. Now, diversity entity, it's hard to compare because they have so many different areas that one area might be performing rather well, and that would mean that it bolsters other places. The last one is atypical data. Now, atypical data is data that's not representative of the normal year. So towards the end of a financial year there's a big push to get data in, and the numbers can look a little bit different from what they'd look at throughout the whole year. So it's my 5 items. Alright. And my last one is, what do we got? Discuss the need for comparative analysis and identify the 3 tools of financial statement analysis. Now this wasn't done too well either. So comparative analysis needs to be formed. Comparative analysis needs to be performed, or is performed, to evaluate short-term liquidity, profitability and solvency, Alright. And what happens is comparisons can detect changes in financial relationships. And significant trends. Now, what are the 3 tools of financial statement analysis? We can analyse horizontally, vertically, and with ratios. And that is question number 2 done.